All right, guys, I'd like to welcome you to this week's report. We've got some pretty good fishing here for mid to late October, and a lot of things happening offshore and inshore. The bad news is we got some weather this weekend. Shouldn't affect the coastal stuff too much other than it being cool, but the outer islands, northern channel islands, and the offshore tuna grounds can be probably pretty rough. So it looks kind of short-lived, so hopefully it doesn't wipe anything out, but it may not bode well for your trip this weekend, but if you're planning on going out next week, I think you'll probably be fine. Let's take a look at what's happening on the map. All right, I'm going to start out up north. Still some pretty good fishing happening up there. I saw that the Island Spirit went out to fish the coast out of Ventura up there earlier this week, and they had limits of bass, and they had some bonita and rockfish and stuff like that. So that's surprisingly good fishing up there for this time of year. Good sign of some stable water up that way, if nothing else. So hopefully that holds up for a while here. And it gives people living up that way an option if it's too windy to go to the islands. Speaking of the islands, it's mostly rockfish out there right now, but this is a great time of year to go out there. We got rockfish open through the end of the year, and you get a day with some nice Santa Ana conditions. It's a perfect time to run out to Rosa or San Miguel. And I'm watching the window, whether myself might try and find a window to run up there. A lot of good shallow water rock fishing action to be had, and you know, you might get a shot of the sea bass too. We got there's some squid up that way. I don't know what the lunar cycle is right now. I didn't check, but probably a couple weeks ago. So we're probably coming up on the new moon. Might be wrong about that, but you know, maybe next full moon might get a shot at some sea bass. That bluefin that was up at the islands, it was still up there a couple days ago, up foaming around. I know the spotter plane for the Pilikia has been up there looking at that stuff while they're looking for swordfish. But I don't think anybody's really going out and fishing that too much right now. And with the weather we have this weekend, I don't know that it's going to be conducive to doing that anyway. I had talked quite a few times about how as we're getting later in the season here, the conditions become pretty important when looking offshore, finding that right water and everything else. And I actually looked at the SST chart on Fish Dope the other day, and it gave a really good picture of kind of what's going on. And it explains a lot about what's happening offshore right now. So I'm gonna put up that SST chart now and take a look. And as you can see up at the Channel Islands, there's that orange and yellow water. That is water in the high 60s, mid 60s, and that's where that bluefin is, in that orange water there off the backside of Santa Cruz Island, backside of Rosa, and you know, you can see it goes all the way down to the dirt clod. There's that good band of water right there, so there's no reason there shouldn't be bluefin in all that. And if I were looking, I'd look on the colder edges of that warm water, and I would think that's your most likely spot to find those fish. I don't have the current chlorophyll chart, but I can almost guarantee you there's some color breaks in there. If you coordinate that with those temp breaks, bluefin are almost always going to be on the cooler side of the break. If the water's warm, if the water's cold, they might be on the warmer side. But right now, I'd look on that edge of warmer to cooler water. If you're looking out that way, and you know, so just to explain how this whole thing works, there's that bluefin in that zone there, and it tracks down by Santa Barbara Island. I know I think the Navigante got one while they were up there fishing yellows the other day. And then that warmer water runs down the backside of Catalina and then hooks around to Clemente. And that's that 499 zone, the other areas where there have been bluefin in the past. It doesn't sound like there's a whole lot right there right now. But you can see when you get to the west end of Clemente, down through the Mackerel Bank and down to the 1A1, 1A2 ridge down there towards the corner, that's the warmest water on the coast, and that's where all that yellowfin is. So these guys are getting the yellowfin, are getting them on the front side of Clemente. These are the bigger yellowfin, and you know, they're getting 50 pounders and stuff. And those fish are cruising in that warmer water. So if you're looking for yellowfin at this time of year, you're going to want to find the warmest water you can. And then you're going to look at your chlorophyll chart and find the cleanest water you can, because the combination of those two is where those yellowfin are most likely going to be. The bluefin that we talked about last week kind of being harder to find, it sounds like those things slid out to the Tanner and Cortez, so they're kind of working that zone, moving in between that zone from the 381 off the east end backside of Clemente out to Tanner and Cortez. And that water is all in a slightly cooler zone. So that's more ideal for those bluefin. And if you look at the water temperature out at the Tanner, for example, it's orange. I'm looking at my computer here, so bear with me. 60-something degrees. That same orange, that lighter orange, is what's on the backside of Santa Cruz where those bluefin are as well. So any of that lighter orange water is where you're likely to find those fish. And they can be anywhere in that big, that's a big area of water down there, so it's going to, without any differentiation and temperature breaks, they're most likely going to be associating with the structure like the banks and things like that. But you also have a chance at an open water school out there anywhere in that water. Heading down towards San Diego, you know, those yellowfin they're getting in Dorado are still biting, and I know they've been getting some good scores some days and struggling other days. I know one day they'll have limits of Dorado, next day they'll have limits of yellowfin, next day after that they'll have, you know, 30 fish. But you can see how broken up that water temperature is down around those lower banks, or not the lower banks, but the local banks in San Diego. So that area, you know, you're almost better off being in U.S. waters until you get down off Ensenada, which I don't have in this photo, but it warms up again. There's more fish down that way. So what's happening here is this warm water is just getting condensed down into nothing. And we're going to get a couple of good storms and all these little hot spots are going to break up. But right now, if I were going out, I would rely 100% on your temp chart and your chlorophyll when looking for fish. And make decisions about it. See where fish are being caught, and you can make some guesses. I can tell you 3 or 4 of the spots where there might be bluefin right now, or you know, good areas that you might catch a yellowfin or Dorado. I'm not saying you will, but you'd be definitely pointing your boat in the right direction if you went and looked that way. So that pretty much covers the offshore stuff. The islands, no one's really been putting a lot of pressure at Clemente lately with the stuff going on offshore. I know that Captain Brandon Nelson ran out there the other day, had some good calico fishing. Haven't heard a whole lot else. None of my buddies went out last weekend and I know of, but I don't know why it wouldn't be biting. You could probably go fish the front side for yellows. You could probably catch calicos anywhere. Probably on the back side of East End would be pretty good. You could probably find yellowfin on the front of the island as well. You might find bluefin off the backside. But I don't think the private boaters will be able to make it out there this weekend. And the sport boats that do go out are probably going to be fishing tuna. Catalina's pretty good. A lot of bonita biting, some bass, some yellowtail. I know the sport boats are doing good on the bonita. And my buddy Vaughn Podmore, who runs the Salty Fly Guide Service, is catching calicos, bonita, even whitefish on flies. So I don't know how he's doing the whitefish, but looks like good steady wintertime fishing over there. I know the sport boats like the Pursuit have gotten a couple of bigger yellows over there recently. And yeah, so that should be probably an okay option this weekend. If it doesn't, I'd check the weather before you head out. Along the coast, I ended up fishing Thursday at Palos Verdes, and that's the second week in a row I was there, so I kind of had an idea what conditions looked like where the fish were biting. When I got down to Point Furman, the water temp was off by about 4 degrees from the previous Thursday, which is not too surprising because that place upwells all the time, so I wasn't too concerned about it. But from there, all the way to the MPA closure at Terranea Resort there was a lot of generic water. It just did not look good. It was off color, cold. Not much current, pretty stagnant. I don't think we even saw fish. No, we did get one bite at Furman, but it didn't stick. And I decided to run up past the closure and go check out Rocky. Got up there to find good current. Great looking water, about 3 degrees warmer up there, but again, very generic water with nothing standing out as a place that, hey, you can go here and catch fish. So if I get into a situation like that up there or anywhere else, I will just run my stock spots and see if there's fish in areas where you normally catch fish. And in this case, I didn't, but I just kept hitting all the areas where I've caught fish, looked for conditions. Finally found a little stretch of conditions outside of shark fin, or what they call flat rock. Made a 50-yard stretch of kelp that had the current going the right way, had some turns working on, the cormorant diving in there, some bait flipping, and it was pretty good bass fishing on there. They're biting the weedless but not sticking. Caught, I think, 3 weedless fish, a couple of fish on the 7-inch split-tail slug, a couple hard bait fish, and then Matt had a shot of the giant there, had I would say a 10-pound plus fish. just charge out of nowhere and eat his bait about 6 feet from the rod tip. And it, you know, one of those things where it just came in from the side, hit it fast. He didn't even get a chance to swing on it. That thing spit it out and swam away. But real exciting to get a shot of the fish that size. And that was in a known big fish spot for me. So it's, you know, it's interesting. I haven't seen a big fish up there in 4 or 5 years in that particular spot. You know, there was one there that day. We decided to head back down and look at some other stuff. We were fishing in the afternoon, so we didn't even get up there until like 3 o'clock. And as we were passing the closure there at Ternay again, I could see bird school up at Trump that, I mean, I saw the thing from a mile away probably. And we got up there and it was pelicans, seagulls, terns, cormorants, everything, just all in one zone, just diving, big piles, right in the middle of the kelp. I mean, not on the leading edge, kelp had no current, looked horrible. But there's just a ton of birds, and as we pull up, you can see bass boiling everywhere. And after we caught our first couple of fish, we realized that the bass were eating grunion, because they were puking them up. And there's schools of grunion in the kelp there, and they were hauling ass around in that kelp, but the birds would stay on top of them, and the bass were, you know, coming up and feeding on them, and it was just like a fast-moving target, but it was up, you know, maybe an acre of stuff up at a time, and they didn't really want the bigger baits. They only wanted something that looked like a grunion. So we stuck with that 7-inch split-tail slug on an owner's sled head, and after the video here, I'll show you the setup we're using and how we're fishing that bait. But it was every cast for 2 hours probably. I mean, I don't even know how many we caught. 80, 60, 100, who knows? It was a lot of bass. I mean, every cast. And what it was those grunion were just in the kelp. I didn't know they had grunion runs this late in the year. I'm not a grunion expert by any stretch of the imagination. I know what the one looks like though. And these fish were fired up. And you know, you drive by that kelp up there and you think there's no bass or very few bass there, but you get something like that happen, and there are dozens of bass boiling simultaneously. And these fish we chased from 60 feet of water into 12 or 15 feet of water, just dirty, ugly, stale, no current water, and it was a fish every cast. I got a little video that just shows you how good this fishing was here. This wasn't even set up. I just decided to grab my camera and, you know, after Matt caught his 20th fish in a row, take this little shot. You can see he gets bit 2 or 3 times before he actually hooks his fish, which is pretty cool.
How am I missing these fish?
Been like this every cast for a half an hour here. Just fantastic split-tail slug fishing. The calicos have there's a bunch of grunion in here, birds everywhere, nice sized bass. Swim on there, buddy. There you go. Get him in the boat. That's that new 9-foot range head I just built for Matt. Hold that thing up real quick, bud. Yep, all afternoon. Anyway, there's you know, good bass fishing along the coast. I know down in Dana Point the boats have been getting them when they get good bait. And down in San Diego, there's also some yellows being caught. I know the half-day boat down there. I think the new Seaport's got a nice big yellow the other day on their morning trip. There's still some fish down at the Coronados, but really haven't heard anything else down that way, other than, you know, just the normal stuff, rockfish down there and some yellows. But yeah, overall, fishing's pretty good, but we're gonna have a little bit of weather this weekend, so I'd fish along the coast probably, or really check your weather closely before heading out. It's supposed to be a lot cooler as well. I don't think that's really gonna affect fishing, and it doesn't seem like the wind's gonna blow hard enough or long enough to really wipe out what's happening offshore. It may change things up a little bit for a couple of days, but I think that'll all rebound and go back to normal for next week. But yeah, I'm going to get out on the map here and I'm going to show you the rod and reel setup I'm talking about. As you saw in the video, Matt had a little trouble bouncing that calico, and that's because he's just getting used to fishing this 9-foot jerk shad rod. This is a Range Shadow Revelation 92 MH, which is it's a telescoping crankbait rod for freshwater bass fishermen. It's a 2-piece telescoping, but I glue it in. They make it telescoping to fit in rod lockers. I don't deal with that, so I don't worry about it. I've got this rigged up with a little Abu Revo Inshore, or you could use a Penn Fathom 200, and those small reels, 30-pound braid, sealed like 40-pound leader. And currently I've been rigging these split tail slugs on this owner's sled head But after this last trip, we went through a tremendous amount of these baits, and I talked to Corey Sandin at MC Swim Baits about the amount of baits we're going through, and he suggested to get away from the sled head and use a different rigging method. And I haven't tried it yet, so I'm not going to talk about it, but if I get out this week, I'm going to rig some up and give it a shot, and I'll give you guys some feedback on how that's working. But basically, to fish this split-tail slug, you just bomb your cast out, and then just wind on the surface with let me back my drag off here. 3 or 4 fast turns, pause. 3 or 4 fast turns, pause. That's all we're doing. On the surface, speed it up, slow it down, kill it for a second. If you're not getting bit in the top of the water column, you can even cast it out and let it sink for 10 feet. I normally would let it sink on a slack line if I was going to let it sink, and then just do the same retrieve. It's a pretty brainless bait to fish. You can fish it like you're fishing a weedless swim bait, and it gets bit a lot of times when they're not biting or they're not coming into the weedless. If you're getting short bites on the weedless and they're not getting the hook, try throwing out this little split-tail slug. As you can see, we're using the same color we use for everything else, the hot cotch here, green and gold. And fun way to catch them. It's light tackle. They really give you a tussle, and it's kind of a fun thing to do. But that's about it for this week. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and good luck if you get out there fishing.